Since the start of Blight League, have you ever thought about Winter Orb? Because you know, Winter Orb is like your ex-GF that used to be together in the past. But then you broke up and came back together. And then you broke up again. And now your relationship is an awkward position where you want to come back but believe that things won't work as they were working in the past. But have no fear, my fellow exiles. As of today, I will introduce you to a build that will get you back with Winter Orb in no time. The build utilizes every trick in the book to increase its damage. Also, it doesn't require any specific expensive items like the Eternity Shroud or Headhunter to function. And the build doesn't rely on a specific Ascendency to operate at maximum efficiency, which is good, mainly because now GGG can't nerf such Ascendency as the build isn't very dependent on it in the first place. So behold what this build is capable of.
Father, no!
Putrefy, rot, spoil, and fester.
Exile, do something!
Alright, now that I caught your attention, let's get into the actual build. But before that, two things. First of all, every item and flask you see here have a skin added onto them, so they are not what they seem to be, so keep that in mind. Secondly, this build has been put together as of 3.8 update on Standard League, meaning that it shares the same passive tree and itemizations as the League. I'm not using a single legacy item here with the exception of the body armor, which has 75 more energy shield compared to its current maximum. However, that's not very important as you only need this body armor to be able to run at low life regardless of whatever energy shield roll it has. So aside from it, all my items are perfectly attainable in Blight League with their current maximum stats. I'm just recording this on standard to be able to bring you this build faster. So, first of all, passive tree and ascendancy. We are Witch ascended into Occultist. Yes, I'm using the weakest ascendancy for this build just to show you that it can work with anything. But mainly because Occultist's start position is the closest to all the nodes we need for this build, so less traveling cost overall. Now for the order of the Ascendency leveling, first we go for Forbidden Power. This one gives us free power charges as we spend mana, in addition to +1 to maximum power charges. Also it scales the benefit of each power charge, although the bonuses are not that significant. Next, we go for Void Beacon, a flat 20% cold and chaos resistance penalty to all nearby enemies. Winter Orb deals cold damage, and we do actually have some chaos damage in this build. Next you go for Vile Bastion. With it you can't be stunned and it makes mapping so much easier. Finally go for Frigid Wake. Until you get your chaos damage items in the late game, this node will add an extra layer of defense by freezing everything around you every once in a while, including bosses that usually cannot be frozen. It also renders you immune to cold status effects. However, in the late game try to switch to Withering Presence instead, as it amplifies the chaos damage you deal to everything around you in addition to 60% chaos resistance. But if you feel like staying on the safe side, then stick with Frigid Wake. That was for the Ascendancy. Now for important keystones that you should go for, once you obtain your shafts and start playing as a low life character, allocate Pain Atonement. This one is basically 30% more spell damage while low on life. Also we have Wicked Ward. This one prevents the interruption of our energy shield recharge if it has already started recently, which is around 4 seconds. Aside from these two keystones, take every mana reservation node and aura effectiveness cluster on site, with the ones I have pointed at here, and also here. You should have enough mana to run 4 35% mana reservation auras using 1 level 4 Enlighten and 1 level 3 Enlighten gem. Also, they give you a total of 40% increased aura effectiveness, which, spoiler alert, is the breaking point to gain 2 additional maximum elemental resistances from level 23 purities and above. It also increases the benefits from any offensive auras you have in this build, and we do actually run Hatred. Next, we have generic crit node clusters like Doomcast, Nimbleness, Annihilation, and Arcane Potency. Then go for pure cold damage scaling nodes like the giant cold cluster at the top. And don't forget to take the Frostwalker node near the starting location. Finally, break your way to the Templar side of the tree and take some of his useful nodes like Faith and Steel, Holy Dominion, and Light of Divinity. These will give you extra spell damage, more elemental resistances, cast speed, crit damage and crit chance, in addition to some nice amount of attributes. Finally, if you are high level enough, go for as many jewel sockets as possible near your pathing on the tree. We will go over what mods you want for your jewels near the end of this video, but for now, take the mana and ES scaling cluster over here, and for level 90 and above, take the intelligence scaling nodes at the top of the tree. These will come in handy as we talk about our choice of itemizations in the next segment of this video. But as usual, check the description for a link that will take you to this character profile. There you can copy the entire passive tree if you like. Now we finally get to the itemization section. The core item is a Chevron's Wrapping. This will deny chaos damage from bypassing energy shield, effectively rendering you immune to chaos damage as long as you have energy shield left. And as mentioned before, we utilize this by using our life as auras by linking regular auras with blood magic support gem. Now for weapons, buy a pair of any level 85 plus shaped ones with increased spell damage implicit. Then keep spamming alteration orbs on them until you get the unique shaper mod, which is gain percentage of elemental damage as extra chaos damage up to 20%. You can have that mod on each one for a total of 40% chaos damage gain. Finally, you want to regal and annul so that now you have a rare item with only the one mod you want. It's a 50-50 chance, so it will take you a couple of tries to get what you want, unless if you are lucky, of course. But once you have what you want and you are done, now it's time to multi-mod the following things. For your 2 suffixes, go for spell crit chance and crit multiplier. And for your 2 prefixes, craft hybrid increase the spell damage and gain percentage of non-chaos as chaos. And then craft the standalone non-chaos as chaos mod, both in which are syndicate crafts. If you don't have any of these 2 unlocked, then just craft the flat added cold damage to spells instead. It's a prefix and gives almost the same effect. Next for your rings. For me, I went with a generic Lihue of all iron ring, mainly because I didn't have anything specific in mind. But ultimately you should try to get a pair of 2 opal rings with energy shield, mana, and crafted faster start of energy shield recharge as your 3 prefixes, and intelligence plus resistances as your suffixes. Next, helm. Go for Vertex Val Mask. You should specifically buy one with +2 to the level of socketed aura gems, or +2 to the level of socketed AoE gems, or +2 to the level of socketed duration gems, corruption implicits. They go for cheap unless you are buying one with maxed energy shield roll. Inside this helm we got our level 20 purities, which will gain +1 level from the helm itself and 2 additional levels from the corruption, giving us a total of level 23 socketed auras. I will explain why we want this in a later segment, but for now the helm also gives us some nice chaos resistance, which is also niche. Next, for your amulet, get any level 85 plus shaped amulet, the base of choice of course, depending on what attributes you are lacking. Keep spamming alteration orbs on it until you get the rare shaper mod, which is 1% increased damage per 15 points of intelligence. We got around 900 intelligence in this build, and that translates into 16% increased total damage, which is broken from a single mod. And as usual, once you get that mod, you want to regal and annul, so you can multi-mod just like what you did with your weapons. However, it would be nice if you keep repeating the process until you regal into crit multi, since you can't craft that on amulets. Now for the mods that you want to craft on your amulet, for prefixes go for percentage increased energy shield and increased area effect / area damage, hybrid syndicate craft. And for the suffixes, just craft crit chance and or intelligence if you didn't regal into any of them before multi-modding. Next, for gloves and boots, get any decently high energy shield rare gloves and boots with commitment of reflection lab enchantment. This is a very good defensive enchantment that creates an image of yourself that keeps distracting enemies while you are repositioning yourself when you are hit. Now for your boots, you can go for Centric, a good all-rounder unique boot, which is what I consider to be the best non-rare energy shield boots in the game. And last, for your belt, it's supposed to come at the end when you are checking your attributes and resistances. Literally get any belt with whatever stats and resistances you're missing, but if you already got that figured out, then you can go creative like what I did here. I got a rare belt and spammed Essence of Spite on it for that exclusive intelligence roll which cannot normally roll on belts. I kept doing that until I got one mod I need alongside it, then I multi-modded into fully defensive prefixes as you can see here. But as I said, you can go creative with this, especially with shape belts with shaper mods like this one. However, for the sake of keeping this build simple, forget about shape belts or just keep them as a late game investment. Okay, now let's talk about your gem links. First of all, our main 6 link. We got Winter Orb, greater multiple projectile support, infused channeling, added cold damage, controlled destruction, and finally increased critical strike support. You can swap controlled destruction with increased critical strike multiplier support, but that will lower your final damage. I did normal math on it to prove this and found out that the tooltip isn't actually lying. Having controlled destruction in this link is actually better than having crit multiplier. Don't ask me why, it's just like that. Anyway, now we jump for our main aura setup. In our helm, you need level 4 Enlightened gem, which usually goes for 5 to 7 exalts. Alongside it, we have level 20 Purity of Fire, Purity of Ice, and Purity of Lightning. These auras gives you increased elemental resistances to their respective type, in addition to increased maximum resistances as well. Usually the increased maximum resistance is capped at plus 4% at level 20, and afterward the gem stops leveling. However, you can get an additional 1% bonus to maximum elemental resistance out of each gem if they are level 23 or above. And that's why we went with plus 2 aura corruption alongside this helm that already gives a plus 1 to the level of socketed gems. Don't forget that plus 2 AoE gem corruption also works for auras, and plus 2 duration gems only work if the purities are modified to their Val version. Next, we have a second aura setup in our boots. For this, we need another level 4 Enlightened gem in conjunction with a level 21 Blood Magic support, which allows any linked aura to reserve life in a state of mana. And for that, we got Hatred and Herald of Ice. Now for our third and last aura setup, we got a level 3 Enlightened gem linked with Discipline and Clarity in our weapon. At this point, your remaining mana will be so low that I recommend you to not use Discipline until you are level 85 and above, or just feel like having sufficient mana to run the actual aura. In our second weapon, however, we have our primary movement skill, which is Flame Dash. It is linked with exactly level 7 Arcane Surge support and level 20 faster casting. At this point, the remainder of our gem links are not mandatory but nice to have. In our gloves, we have level 11 cast when damage taken linked with level 16 Steel Skin. Also level 20 Val Righteous Fire linked with increased duration support gem. Now while Val Righteous Fire is active, you will deal significantly more spell damage, so take advantage of that for nuking bosses as you saw me doing at the start of the video. Finally, for our flasks, we got a Quicksilver Flask with immunity to curses and increased duration for faster mapping. A Silver Flask with immunity to bleed and increased duration, a Diamond Flask for nearly guaranteed crits on every hit with increased movement speed and increased duration, a Granite's Flask to help us dive into groups of mobs while mapping in addition to immunity to freeze and increased duration, and finally, Dying Sun Ruby Flask will allow our Winter Orb to fire 2 additional projectiles. Now we are done with gearing, let's talk about your jewels, starting with your Watcher's Eye. As a start, get a Watcher's Eye with best crit mod only once you can afford it, then upgrade to another Watcher's Eye with the same mod and with gain percentage of maximum mana as energy shield while affected by clarity. Or if you want to deal more damage, just get a double hatred mod Watcher's Eye. However, I don't recommend it due to how much mana we have in this build, which can be greatly utilized to get almost 2000 more energy shield. Now for your other jewels, get any Cobalt Jewel with energy shield, increased global critical strike chance, crit multi, crit chance with cold skills, same with crit multi, generic increased cold damage, projectile damage, even area damage works with Winter Orb, and finally any resistances that you need. Just make sure you have at least over 100% on each one of your uncapped resistances and you should be fine for the late game. With all of that, you will have exactly 2 million Shaper DPS with all 6 power charges active and without any flask, in addition to 82% all maximum elemental resistances and around 9000 energy shield. Sadly, we don't have any armor or evasion rating to speak of. Now in the last section of this video, I want to talk about general gameplay mentality while playing with this build and Winter Orb in general. You see, the Winter Orb nerf did hit the skill duration and cast speed significantly, which both used to be already on the weak side even before the nerf itself. That made it so that the player will have to invest more into increased duration so that it can do something while you are not building charges. And that is exactly the big mistake that the players tend to make when they are trying Winter Orb after nerf these days. You see, you shouldn't be beating a dead horse after it already have been beaten 2 updates ago. Winter Orb can no longer be considered a charged skill, sadly. However, if you are willing to change your playing style, then it's possible to completely avoid the downsides of the Winter Orb nerf. It is simple, just look at Winter Orb like something like Scorching Ray, a proper channeled skill that does nothing once you stop channeling it. As a result, you will always want to be channeling Winter Orb and minimize your movement time as much as possible. That is done by utilizing the newly buffed movement skill Flame Dash that made its casting point near instantaneous, making it more of a blink than a dash. This is great because now you can easily travel around the map while channeling Winter Orb between dashes. And yes, it can be done against bosses as well, as the first part of the video implies. Just dash defensively when a projectile is coming toward you and you should be fine. If anything, that will train and improve your reaction time instead of having Winter Orb as a skill used by lazy people. Anyway, that was it for this build guide. I hope you enjoy using it, blasting bosses in Blight Lake. And if you got any questions, just hit me up in the comment section. I will make sure to get back to you as soon as I can. My name is Phoenix and I will see you all in the next